Welcome to my third Skyrim mod tutorial. Today we're going to make a little quest where Balin Grey actually takes over your mind and forces you to kill this poor beggar over here in Whiterun. And so what's going to happen is when I talk to him, he's going to actually, my screen will turn red, and at that point I actually don't have control over my player's actions, so let's see what happens. Can you spare some coin? You hate the beggar. Kill him.
Hey, what?
Good. You have done well. And now I'm back to normal. So when it turned red there, I wasn't actually able to control what was going on. So let's see how this was made. Alright, to begin making this mod, we're going to start by adding the actors that we're going to need. So the first thing we're going to make is the actor for the beggar. So go ahead and open up the actor tree, right click and select new. We'll call this TQM beggar, and we'll just give him the name of beggar and the short name of beggar. We're also going to check the unique box because there should only be one of him in the world at one time. We're going to change his race to be, let's call him a dark elf, and we'll change his voice to be male elf haughty. And then the next thing we need to do is change the inventory, give him some clothes. So if we click the preview button, there he is, but he's not clothes, so let's give him an outfit. I'm going to give him the madman outfit. If you look at that, it just makes him look like he's kind of raggy clothes. And that's all we need to do for now, so click OK. And now let's make our actor is going to play the stranger. And we're going to call him, we're going to bring in Balin Grey again. And we give him the name Balin Grey. And the short name of Balin. We're going to check him to be unique and essential, so he won't die. We're going to change his race to be the Nord race, and then give him a voice type of male Nord. And then go over to the inventory panel. We'll just give him an outfit. I usually give him the merchant clothes outfit, no hat. And we can click the preview button to see what he looks like. So that's good. And then click OK. So what we need to do now is actually place them in the world. So let's first put the beggar inside of Whiterun. To do that, go change the world space drop down and go to Whiterun world. Then let's just open up Whiterun origin, double click on it, and it will load up in the render window. I'll zoom out to get an idea of where we are. So I'm going to pan over down here, so along the wall down here, so he's kind of out of the way. And also, if you see all these objects on the screen, you want to get rid of them, just press M and it'll hide all the markers in the world. Anyway, I'm going to drag him in here, so I'm going to filter by TQM, and there's the beggar. I'm just going to drag him, place him right there. And now, we're actually going to put Balin Grey in a different place. So we're just going to put him in some other area, because we're going to actually teleport him in when we need him. And so to do that, I'm just going to put him in the abandoned shack interior. It gives you an error, just hit yes to all. And it will load the interior, and I'm just going to drag him in right here. And so notice he's actually not in Whiterun initially, but we'll actually move him in when the quest starts. Okay, so that's all we need to do for now to set up the actors, so go ahead and save your progress. Alright, now that we have our actors set up, we're going to actually start making the quest. So this time go to the character tree, and select the quest tree. Now right click and select new. Get the ID of TQM Quest 02, and the quest name will be Mindless Killing. Let's again give it a priority of 60, change the type to be side quests, and we're going to leave the event as none, and make sure the start game enabled button is checked, because we want this quest to be enabled when the player starts this game. So basically it's always running, but you may not be in a certain stage of it yet. So the next thing we actually need to do is create some aliases. So let's go to the Quest Aliases tab, right click and select New Reference Alias. We're going to first make an alias for the beggar. So we're going to an alias name of beggar, and he's going to be a unique actor. We're going to select TQM beggar. Alright, now go up to the alias name and hold shift and press tab twice and press enter to save. Now right click and add a new reference alias again, and this time we're actually going to make an alias for the player. So I'm going to say player here. I'm going to select unique actor and change this to be player. So now we actually have an alias that points to the player. Now we're doing this because the player is actually involved in one of our scenes, and that's where we're going to take control of him and make him attack the beggar. So now we're going to add a new reference alias again. And this will be for the stranger, who will actually be played by Balin Gray. So we're going to select unique actor and choose TQM Balin Gray. And then hold shift and press tab twice, press enter. Now finally, we need to add one more reference alias, and this is an alias to a marker of where Balin Gray was originally before we teleported him into the scene, so we could use his voice inside of the player's head. So we're going to call this alias Stranger Origin, and it's going to be create reference to object. We're going to create a reference to an X marker, which is just a position marker. You can ignore the level, it's not going to matter. We're going to use create at, and we're going to create at stranger. So what this does is when this alias is filled, it's going to create a new X marker, so a position marker in the world where stranger is. And because stranger could be placed anywhere in the world, so what's actually going to happen is, if you remember, we placed the actor inside of that abandoned shack, it will create a marker there, so we can actually teleport him back when we're done with the scene. The next thing we need to do is actually add the stages for this quest. We're just going to add 3 stages. First is the initial stage. I'm going to set this as the startup stage, so check that box. Then stage 10 is after the beggar has approached the player and asked him for money. So that's when we're going to actually start up the scene where he goes in to attack the player, or where the player begins to attack the beggar. We're going to add stage 20, and this is after the beggar has been killed. Alright, so go ahead and save your work now. Alright, now that we have our quest made, we need to start working on the dialogue for the quest. The first thing we're going to do is make the dialogue where the beggar comes up to the player and asks for some money. So open up TQM Quest 02, go to the Dialogue Views tab, then right click in this left area and select New. I'm going to call this TQM Quest 02 Dia View, then click OK. Now with this selected, right click over here and select Create Branch. I'm going to call this TQM Quest 02 Beggar Branch, and click OK. It's going to suggest a topic. I'm just going to leave it as default. Now double click the light orange area to edit the topic, and when it pops up, right click in here and select New. So this is the text that the beggar is going to say to the player, so he's just going to say, can you spare some coin? Hit OK to spell check, then hit OK again to close the window. Now we're going to add 2 conditions to it, because again, this dialogue option will be available to all characters in the world at this point. We want to limit it only to the beggar. So to do this, we're going to add a new condition. We're going to check it to get is alias ref, and it defaults to alias beggar, so that's OK. That's what we want. Click OK. Now what we need to do is also check this goodbye button. And what that means is after the beggar has said this line, it will close the dialogue with the player, so the player won't be stuck in a dialogue loop with this guy. The next thing we need to do is end. On the end script here, we want to progress the quest. So we're going to type in get owning quest dot set stage, or progress it to stage 10, which is the stage after the beggar has talked to the player. One more thing we have to do is make sure this dialogue is only available during stage 0. So we're going to add a new condition here, get stage. We're going to pass it TQM Quest 02, and then we're going to set the value to 0. So this is only available at stage 0 of TQM Quest 02. Alright, last thing we need to do is actually record the voice, otherwise it won't work. So we're going to open it up again by double clicking, and then notice it already filtered it down to Mel Elf Hottie because I chose the alias ref of beggar. I'm just going to record some silence, and later on I'll record over these. Okay, and I'm going to click save, and then click OK. And then click OK one more time. And then click OK one more time, and there we are. There's our dialogue with the beggar. So go ahead and save your work. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is create the scene where the player kills the beggar. So to do that, open up the TQM Quest 02, go to the Scenes tab, now in the left area, right click and select New. I'm going to call it TQM Quest 02 Kill Beggar Scene. I'm going to click OK. Now with that scene selected, in the right area, right click and select Add Phase at End. Now we need to add some actors to the scene. The first actor we're going to add is the player. We also need to add the beggar. And then finally we're going to add the stranger. So the first thing that happens is that the stranger says some words in the player's head. So to do that, right click on the stranger and select Insert Action Dialogue. And then don't worry about any of these settings. We need to right click in the info area and select New. So the first thing he's just going to say good, or I'm sorry, he's going to say you hate the beggar, kill him, ... Click OK, and then click OK again. Now, the first thing that we need to do is set the audio output override. We're going to set this to SOM dialogue 2D. What this does is it means that it doesn't matter where the speaker is placed in the world. It will just make the audio come out basically through the player's speakers. So if he's far away, it won't sound distant. He'll just be wherever. As long as he's in the scene, you'll hear his voice clearly. So the conditions, we also need to add a new condition. We're going to say get is alias ref, and this time the alias needs to be set to stranger. And we're just doing this so we can narrow down the voice options. So now we can double click on this again. And I'm just going to record some silence. Later on I'll go over it and record real dialogue. Okay, now click save. Always remember to hit save. And hit OK. And then hit OK one more time. And OK one more time. Okay, so now we need to add another phase after this one. So we're going to say add phase at end. And so after the stranger says this line, we actually want the player to go attack the beggar. So to do this, we're going to add a new action to the player. We're going to add a package, and in the area down here, right-click and select New. Now what we need to do is change this package template to Use Weapon. And so this is an AI package that will force the actor to use weapon. So the first thing we need to do is change the Use Weapon location. Click the button here, and say Pack Data Target, and set to Target to Attack. So it says the location where we actually want to use this weapon is wherever the target is within a radius of 32 units. The next thing we need to do is set the target to attack, so we actually want the player to attack the beggar. So click the None button there, and check Ref Aliases, and then after it loads up you can select Beggar, then click OK. So that says I want to attack the beggar. Now there's a few default options that we want to change. First of all, always hit, or that's okay, if we want to change Do No Damage to False, we actually want him to do damage. And then allow combat start on hit, we want to set to true. So that means when the player actually hits the beggar, it will start a combat phase. Alright, everything else should be fine. Go ahead and click OK. Then click OK again. So there's our action in the scene. So finally, the problem is this phase won't end. This little action will keep running just forever, basically. What we need to do is actually end phase 2 when the beggar is finally dead. To do that, you can double click up here on phase 2. Then under the completion tab here, you can select End on Conditions. And our condition is going to be checking for the beggar's death. So we're going to say Get Dead. And then notice you can't select anything. We click that None button. But down here it says Run On. We want to run on a quest alias and beggar. And this is set equal to 1. So it says when the beggar is dead, this phase will actually end. So go ahead and click OK there. Now finally, after he dies, we're going to have some more talking that the stranger does. So we're going to add another phase at the end. And down here we're going to add new action, some dialogue. Right click in this area, select New. This time he's going to say, good, you have done well, ... Then click OK, and click OK again. And again you want to set the audio output override to SOM dialogue 2D. Add a condition that says get is alias ref, and then the alias needs to be set to stranger because the stranger is saying this line. And click OK. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, you want to check the force subtitle option in both the intro and the outro dialogues. And what this does is, even if the character is far away, so if our stranger character is actually on the other side of Whiterun, the subtitles will still appear on the screen. And so we want to make sure we check that force subtitle there. I'm going to click OK there, click OK. I'm actually going to go back to our dialogue we did before and make sure I'm going to check the force subtitle because I forgot to do that. Okay. Now click that, click OK there. Now what we need to do is actually set the script to end, to progress to stage 20 after the scene ends. So I click the Edit Data button up here. Then at the end option, I'm going to say Get Owning Quest. Get Owning Quest. Dot set stage, and set it to stage 20. So what happens is, obviously when this scene ends, the quest stage will be progressed to 20, and that's after the beggar has been killed. Okay, so go ahead and save your work now. Alright, now we're going to add the alias scripts that we're going to need. So go ahead and open up TQM Quest 02. Go to the Quest Aliases tab, and the only thing we need to edit is the beggar. So double click beggar to open it up. So the first thing we need to do is to get the beggar to automatically approach the player without having the player to have to go and interact with them. We're going to use an AI package called the force greet. So right click down here in the alias package data and select new. From the package template drop down, we're going to select force greet. Okay, so what this does is it actually makes the actor run towards the player and greet them with some sort of topic. So the first thing we need to do is actually change the topic to the dialogue topic that we created earlier. So in the drop down, select TQM beggar branch topic. Okay, and then the rest of the values should be okay. So just go ahead and click OK. Next thing we need to do is we're going to make our beggar actually die in one hit. Now this is not entirely necessary, but when I was playing around with making this quest, if you didn't have him die in one hit, the beggar could flee from the player, and the player will chase him down, but not very effectively. So I'm just going to make him die in one hit by using an existing script. So up here in the scripts tab, click add. And we're going to use an existing script called default on hit set AV ref alias. So again, just like in the AI packages, the default ones mean they can be used pretty much in almost any situation. And the on hit set AV ref alias means when this actor is hit, we can set an actor value, and this is for a reference alias. So the object we're working on is a reference alias, and we're going to set its actor value to be something else. So an actor value, one instance of an actor value would be the health, which is what we want to adjust. So double click that, then just select properties. So all we have to do is set the properties. The actor variable that we want to change, hit the edit value here, and we're going to set it to health because that's the actor value we want to change. Player only means only do this if the player hits him, and that's okay. So edit that value and select the checkbox to make sure it's true. So only when the player hits the beggar will he die in one hit. And then finally we need to set the value. So what do we want to change the health value? We want to change it to 0 so he dies immediately after being hit. So then click OK. And that's all we should have to do. So make sure to go up to alias name, hold shift, press tab twice, and then press enter. And then close out your quest and save your work. Alright, now we're going to add some scripts to the quest itself. So again, open up TQM Quest 02, go to the Scripts tab, and click Add. And we're going to add a new script, so double click that. Give it the name of TQM Quest 02 script, then click OK. The first thing we need to do is actually add a property to it. So with it selected, select the Properties button, then click Add Properties. Now what we want to add is the image space modifier for that's applied when basically the player is being mind controlled by the stranger. So we're going to call this mind control ISM and make sure to set the type to image space modifier, then click OK. And then when it adds it to the list, go ahead and select it and select edit value. And I think I'm going to set it to Berserker main imod. And then click OK. Now we need to actually edit the source of our script, so right click and select edit source. And what we need to do is just make two functions, one for beginning mind control and one for ending mind control. So I'm going to make a new function by typing function begin mind control, and it doesn't take any parameters, and then add the end function tag down here. Now all we're going to do is just apply this mind control ISM. So all we're going to say is mind control ISM dot apply, and then it doesn't take any parameters. Now we need to make our end mind control function. So below this, type in function end mind control, open close parentheses, then end function below that. And all we need to do is just remove the ISM. So we're going to say mind control ISM dot remove. And that's all there is to it. So go ahead and save and make sure you didn't have any compile errors. Okay, and then close that. Now what we need to do is adjust our scene so that it utilizes this script. So this time, go back to the scene script, select the kill beggar scene that we made earlier, then click the edit data button again. Now what we want to do is when the scene begins, we want to apply the mind control. So what we're going to do is type in get owning quest, and then as TQM Quest O2 script. So this should look familiar. We did it before, so what we're doing is we're casting the owning script to of type tqmquest02. So now we can access the begin mind control function. So we can call that. Go ahead and compile to make sure that worked. Okay, now in the end we want it when the scene's over, we just want to remove that. So again we're going to cast get owning quest to the type tqmquest02 script, and we're going to do end mind control. So now the image space modifier will be removed when the scene's over. Alright, go ahead and click OK there, close your scene and the quest, and then save your work. Okay, so our quest is almost done. We actually have progression through the stages, so when you talk to the beggar, you'll progress the stage to 10, and when the scene's over, it progresses the stage to 20 for our quest. But the problem is, if you ran it right now, the scene wouldn't actually work. You wouldn't hear dialogue from the stranger, and you also the player wouldn't actually do anything. And so to do this, we actually need to add some scripts to the individual stages. So open up tqmquest02, go to the Quest Stages tab, and we need to add some script to stage 10. So to do this, make sure you right-click in the log entry and select New, and this adds a new log entry, so now we can actually type in some scripts. So I'm going to paste in a script here. And so what this script is doing, line by line, the first line says get the aliases, get the reference for the stranger alias, so that says just get Balin Grey in this case, and we're going to use the move to command, and we're moving him to the reference of the player. So all this is going to do is basically teleports Balin Grey to where the player is. And that's important because he actually has to be near the player and in the same loaded area as the player for his dialogue to be run in the scene. Even though he technically doesn't appear, he's inside the player's head. This is how we get around that. So we teleport him there. Now the problem is if we just teleported him there, he would appear in the scene and just be standing there awkwardly, talking inside the player's head, and we don't want that. So what we do is we say alias, we get the actor ref for the stranger alias, and we set the alpha to 0, and this makes him invisible in the scene. And so that way he won't just be standing there pretty much naked in front of you talking. So the next thing we need to do is disable the player's ability to control the player. So we use the disable player controls just like we did in the other tutorials. And we added 2 additional parameters here. We set AB cam switch to true and AB sneaking equals true. And what this does is this means that the player won't have the ability to go between first and third person, because when you disable player controls, that is actually still enabled. They can still toggle between views. We don't want to allow that because we're going to force it to third person. And also they still have the ability to sneak, and so we want to change that so they can't sneak. Next thing we do is set the camera, we force it to third person. So this forces the camera to third person, and the player won't be allowed to go back to first person until the scene's over. And then finally, this is the most important part right here. By default, when you add those AI packages to the player, they don't do anything because the player is controlled by a person. So to prevent that from happening, you can set this set player AI driven to true, and so now the player's actor will actually look at the AI packages it has and run them. So the player can't control the actor anymore. Then the last thing we do is we say fight scene.start. So fight scene is actually a property that we have to add. So I'm going to comment this out, click compile because we haven't added that property yet. And then after it's compiled, you can click the properties button. Nope. So if the properties thing doesn't open, you just have to close the quest by clicking the OK button. And then when it actually closes, you can open it up again, go to the Quest Stages tab, go to 10, select Properties, and now the little window should pop up. You can add a property. This property is going to be of type scene, because we want to reference the beggar kill scene, so we're going to call this fight scene. Then click OK. And when it's added to the list, now we just need to set it to our beggar fight scene that we created. So in this list, select TQM Quest 02 kill beggar scene, then click OK. And now what we can do is actually uncomment this line so it will be considered when we compile it, and we'll click compile because now that property actually exists. And now it works. Okay. So what we just done is we started the scene after we basically disabled the player's ability to control the player. We teleported Balin Grey into the scene, but we made him invisible, and that way we can actually get him to say dialogue in the scene. if you didn't teleport him in, even though he's added in the scene with dialogue, it won't say those dialogue lines. So it's important that we actually bring him in here. Next we need to go to scene 20. So select our stage 20, so go to stage 20. Then again, right click in the log entry, select new, and I'm going to paste in some script here. So what this script does is the first thing it does is actually take the stranger. It says get rep. Again, we're using the move to, so we're moving the stranger, so we're moving Balin Grey, but now we're moving him back to where the stranger origin was. So this is why we created that stranger origin alias previously, and we created it where Balin Grey originated. So what this does is it basically just teleports him back to where he was, because we don't want him now just to be standing around Whiterun, doing nothing. So we teleport him back to where he was when we're done with the scene, or when we get to stage 20. And the next thing we do is we set his alpha back to 1, so he's now visible again. Then we re-enable player controls by using the enable player controls function. And then we set player AI driven to false, so now the player has control again of his character. Okay, go ahead and click OK. And then save your work. So there's just a couple more things we need to do to finish up our quest. The first thing is when Balin Grey's talking in your head, it's actually going to show up as Balin Grey's name. So what we need to do is set that to show up as mysterious stranger. And to do that, we're going to use the message system again, just like we did in the last tutorial. So we go to the miscellaneous tree and then select the message subtree. Then right click and select new. I'm going to call this TQM stranger name. I'm going to set this title to Mysterious Stranger. Then click OK. Then we need to actually apply this title to the character in our quest, or to the alias. So go to the quest again, open it up, go to the Quest Aliases tab, open up the Stranger alias, and now change the display name to TQM Stranger Name. And hit Shift Tab on the alias to make sure you save. And one last thing that's going to happen is, if we go back to our scene, what happens is this scene will actually end as soon as the beggar dies if you leave it how it is right now. And so the problem with that is it will never say the final phase here. We'll never get to phase 3 and say the outro. So what you need to do is actually edit the actor behavior. And you notice here there's this combat list. And what this says, is kind of hard to tell what's going on here. What this says is that if the player enters combat, or the beggar enters combat, or the stranger enters combat, it's going to end the scene. So we're going to actually uncheck all of those. And also the death is the big problem. We don't want to end the scene when the player or beggar or stranger dies. Actually, we can leave the player, because if he dies it will end, but we'll uncheck the beggar and the stranger. Even though the stranger's not involved, we may as well be safe. And so now what happens is the scene will not be preemptively ended just because our beggar actor dies here. So go ahead and click OK, and then save your work, and now I can go test it. Alright, so let's test out our mod. Here we see our beggar. I can approach him. He'll force greet me right now. Says the lines. Then all of a sudden the scene starts. We get the mind control ISM applied. The voices come over. It activates the package for me to actually start attacking him. So I kill him, that ends phase 2, plays the dialogue, and then the scene ends and it sets the stage to 20 and removes my ISM. So that's the entire little quest start there. So obviously some improvements could be made. For one thing, voice acting could be a lot better. I'm going to shout out to, there's a Skyrim Actors subreddit, so that's r/Skyrim Actors, all one word. They have some people on there that I think for free and for hire, and they do some pretty good work. I was listening to some samples earlier. Another thing that could be an issue is if the player doesn't actually have a weapon on him, this scene probably wouldn't ever end, so you should probably add some checking for that if you're actually going to do something like this. Alternatively, you could also do something where he casts a spell to kill the beggar. And so I hope you learned something about how you can actually apply AI packages to the player and force him to do things, which is pretty cool, and you can add a lot to quests using that. Anyway, thank you for watching.